Welcome to the Divine in Me with our special guest, Bernadette O'Brien Thompson. I'm sorry. And today we are honored to welcome her. And, and she is actually a founder of Tell Me Our Story in Ancestral Healing. Bernadette is an intuitive ancestral healer, grief, and spiritual teacher. And she also is very compassionate, and she also had 20 years experience in grief and trauma, and have a BA in psychology. She helped hundreds of individuals with going through different types of traumas. And then if some people that have been have their families or members that has passed away. And well, Bernadette, it was an honor to have you here, me and Diana. And thank you for accepting to be with us in the Divine en Mí, es la Divinidad en mí.
Mm.
Thank you.
Well, I'm very happy to be here with both of you because you are both very divine beings. I love being with both of you.
Thank you, Bernadette. I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. We were excited to have this time with you, and of course, excited also to share all your experiences, all your knowledge, everything that you are doing to help others, and share the message that you have, and everything to the Spanish speakers as well. So that is really
Mhm.
important because we know there are a lot of messages that the people are receiving in English, but we would like to also touch hearts in Spanish as well. So for that reason, the subtitles and having the energy or your voice, sharing all that you have today to share with us. So thank you for being here, Bernadette. We are excited to have you.
Mm. It is, it's beautiful to be here. The energy of the two of you is very special. And I've spoken individually with both of you, and the beautiful um, ancestral feeling that I get that comes through both of you is so important. And as you were just saying, Diana, talking about the Spanish community, that ancestry and their ancestral roots is such an important part of. It's an important part of all of us, but in particular, anybody that has some indigenous in their background, where they know that their roots go back to the area that they are in many, many, many years and many, many generations. And they feel that. You feel the ancestral energy, and it helps us understand who we are. It helps us to know as we go through this lifetime and what we're experiencing, it helps us to understand who we are. And so I would love to share in whatever way you would love me to share, the ways that I've grown into understanding this and how it's been so helpful, not only for me, but for people that I've helped and worked with and just shared with.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Bernadette.
Thank you.
And well, I would like to hear your story and how you began this. Well, first of all, who you were before, and then how you got into learning more about the ancestors and how you connected with them and how you started to
That
grow
is,
that.
it's such a great question because who I was before was a just normal, my maiden name is Bernadette Margaret Teresa O'Brien. So I'm all Irish, but I'm Irish Catholic. And so I grew up as a little Catholic girl, just went to Catholic school, didn't feel, I felt a spiritualness in church and being connected with God and with Jesus and Mary. But I didn't feel connected like I had a connection with. Um, the ancestors or that with loved ones from the other side. And so what but I did love the ancestors, and so I began years and years ago to learn about my ancestors and how they came over here to this country, and who they were, and I just had this curiosity. And as I began to do that, it was it was amazing. There were so many beautiful stories. I began to see myself in them. And so that's where my ancestral interest came from. And then, you know, but when my life began to change was about 12 years ago, when my husband um, came to me and told me that he was struggling with alcoholism. So he had an addiction. And it, for anybody that has illness in their family or addiction in their family or struggling with a loved one that has something, um, it turned my world upside down. And I really was trying to figure out how to help him, how to help my children understand what we were going through. And also just feeling that it was something I couldn't control and I couldn't fix, and I didn't know what to do. And so I began to go back to prayer, and I began to use the rosary because I had grown up Catholic. Even though I wasn't a very strong practicing Catholic, those roots were there. And so I prayed to Mary using the rosary. And I would use it. And I imagined, because I loved my ancestors, I imagined my ancestors all sitting around a table with me and saying the rosary like we were all saying it together. And that is where the strength of that's where I began to feel the ancestors came in. And first, what happened was I had an aunt. Her name was Sister Lou. She was a nun. She was a great aunt, and I didn't know her well, but I knew her. She'd been to the house a few times. And she came to me in a dream, which sometimes we call a visitation. So she came to me, and it was like her and I were just sitting across from each other, like a Zoom. We're just the two of us.
Mhm.
And and I was afraid to look at her. I'm looking everywhere I could except at her. And the room was kind of like a golden room, so which was kind of strange. But so she held my hands and she made me look right at her, and she said, "We hear your prayers." And then I woke. And it was in that moment that I knew that I wasn't alone, and that all of my ancestors were with me, and that they had heard me and they knew what I was going through. And that was so powerful in helping me begin to understand that there was spiritual help around me. So that was a change. It was, my parents had already passed away, so I felt like I had signs from them, and I knew that they would come around, and I would see, um, I'd see a cardinal, or hear a song, and I knew that they were there. But this was the first time that I felt that my prayers were being answered and that they were with me. And so that was really the beginning. I also had an experience, a very spiritual experience, where I had an ancestor. So then I felt them around me a lot, all of my ancestors. And then one of my ancestors, a great great grandmother, came through and began to say the rosary with me in an Irish brogue. So I was kind of channeling her, and I was saying the rosary in an Irish brogue. So it was the beginning of a spiritual awakening, where I realized this deep connection we had with the ancestors, and that they were here to help me heal and to help me move through this difficult time in my life. So so far in the story, does that make sense?
Yes. And do you mind also telling us a little bit more about your experience with your husband, and why do you think you went through that experience? What is what did you learn?
So so he's we talked about, or you mentioned that I have had experience in grief and trauma. And it is so interesting because my life happened, and I had a lot of knowledge because I had been trained in this area, and I worked with students and children that had trauma and elders that had difficulties in their life. And I know that David, looking back, I know that there was trauma in his life that he had experienced, and that is what kicked off the alcoholism. But it was in his family, and the one, if anybody has this in their family, um, it is something that it is a disease, really. It's very difficult to control, and you feel lost, and you feel as if there's no hope. And he had a beautiful soul, and he would rise during it sometimes. He knew I was trying to help him. And so he would say to me, I know you were so good to me. I know that you are trying to help me. And then he would dive again into the alcoholism, where he just wasn't able to function. And so it was painful. It was hard. He didn't want to share it. So and this again is something that people might understand, is we circle the wagons when we have difficulties in our family. We're afraid to share it. So we think that it is easier if we just handle it ourselves. And that's where we often hit where despair happens, and where we feel so lonely, because we don't reach out and share it with others, because we feel like they won't understand, or that there's shame with it. That's, when we have, if somebody has difficulty with, any kind of addiction, or they have difficulty in a marriage, or they have difficulty because their child has issues that they aren't able to help them. There's so many things that we feel, that this pressure of judgment, that people are judging us. And so I understand those things, and I understand the trauma that our experiences, when we have a serious thing happen in our lives. That's what happened. It is trauma to our bodies, and we feel it because it's emotional trauma. And so that is one of the things that happens, and it was one of the things that I recognized. And it's also one of the things that helped me when the ancestors, when I began to look at my ancestors, and it happened at the time that David was so sick, and he passed away. He passed away about 3.5 years after he had come to me and told me that um, he had alcoholism. And during that time, so he really got sick very quickly. But it was during that time that I knew the ancestors were with me. And so I began to look at their stories even more, and to see what they had been through. And when we look back, we understand that we come from stories and situations that we're experiencing in this lifetime, where our ancestors, maybe they had famine. My ancestors had famine. Maybe they came through a war. Maybe they came through illness, or trouble in marriage, or the loss of children. There was a lot of children that would, from disease and things that. So as I looked back and found the stories from looking at records and and doing ancestral work, I realized that they were like me. They had experienced these difficulties and these traumas, and they came through it. And we know they came through it because we're here. Like um, we are here because they were resilient. and that they came through the tragedy and came through the troubles. And they share it with us. Like when we know their stories, it is like they have come to tell us. And even though we sometimes we'll hear their words, but their stories, they tell us what happened to them. Um, and I am a huge, David died on November 1st, 2017, which is, it is the Day of the Dead, the anniversary, November 1st and 2nd, I think Dia de, Dia de
Muertos.
Muertos. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Um, and I love that tradition of honoring our ancestors and knowing more about them. But what I want people to really know is uh, the troubles that they had, the traumas that they went through, uh, have affected who we are, both in some of it gets passed down, like patterns of behavior, but also that they were resilient and were here because of that. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? Am I talking too quickly?
So now that you are describing everything that you went through, Bernadette, for the people that are watching us, because there are a lot of people with having, as you say, problems, traumas, and a lot of feeling a lot of situations that they already have. So after everything that you went through, what do you think is the reason? Because the normal question is why me? Why me? What I need to going through all of this. So after went through all of this, what is the answer from your experience about why the traumas? Like what is the reason for that?
Yeah. So it is, and this is a bigger spiritual part of it. So, and when I talk with people, because I help them to understand that, often people come to me because their hearts are heavy and they've been through a lot and they're trying to understand the trauma that they are going through or have experienced. And just what you said, Diana, why am I going through this? And the answer to that question is in the bigger idea of us understanding that when we came here for our lifetimes, this lifetime, and for those, some of us only believe that we have one lifetime, and some understand or believe that we have more than one lifetime, that we may come back. So whether you believe this is only our only lifetime, or whether you believe this is that we are coming back for this lifetime, we come to learn, and we come to try and understand how to become a more loving and better person. And when we are here on Earth, life is more black and white. We don't. When we think about heaven, we think about heaven as pure and white, and that there are no troubles in heaven. And that is true, and Spirit will tell us that. But we don't learn if everything is perfect. And so we have this, and that's what Spirit and the ancestors say to me. We have this black and white where it's a learning place for us. And so the why me, why specifically am I in why was it that David had alcoholism? And why was it that, we lost everything and that I went through all of this trauma? Um, uh, it, in the beginning, you feel that because you feel that this is so overwhelming. But um, as you begin to understand the lessons that you can learn from it, and as you open to understanding more about yourself and learning who you are, you begin to see that it was a blessing in some ways. Now, that if you asked me, did I want this blessing? it was very, very hard. It was very hard to watch, especially when you feel like it is something that, well, why couldn't he get better? Or why didn't this happen? Why, in our case, he did not leave me in very good financial, in a very good financial place. So that was a challenge for me. Why would that be the case? And but as as I have awakened and I have opened to the ancestors, they have given me the knowledge that that I've been rising, and that in order to rise, that we have to um, experience something that's going to challenge us, and uh, it doesn't always feel good. And so and sometimes it happens more than once. So we get a little lesson in one thing and then another lesson in something else. And it is our ability to uh, ask for help, which when my ancestors, I used prayer, help came. And when you ask for help, when you ask your ancestors, when you ask the angels, when you ask the spirits on the other side that you believe are there, and it can be loved ones, it can be, it, there's lots of different spirit energy that we can look to and ask for help, and we will see it. They come to us, and they come to us as a thought in our head, that it is okay. Everything's going to be okay. Sometimes if we are sitting there so upset, crying, I've been sobbing and just asking, and then all of a sudden I'll feel this energy comes in, and I just, my breath calms me down, and I feel a little bit better. So it is understanding that we're not being punished when these things happen to us, but that this is our journey through our lives. Um, and there's more I can share, but I want to take pauses so that if there's questions that you want to ask.
I wanted to ask you a question about the ancestries because when they are on the other side, we call them the other side, but actually literally is just
Yes.
right there with us.
Yeah.
um, how can a person, because I'm asking this question for the people out there, they think, how did they not communicate with me? For
Yeah.
example, I don't have any experience. How can those people allow themselves to open up to receive the message?
Yeah.
Because sometimes they're asked, but they're not receiving.
Yes. There are so many ways, and this is the journey. I'll tell you a little bit about the journey that I took. In one of the things I want to share is that when our ancestors, we talk about that trauma can be passed down, and some people might understand this, that they've heard that experiences our ancestors with, like that some of the anxiety or some of the trauma responses can be passed down. So one of the ways that our ancestors, and that is true. So when we look to our ancestors, we can see patterns of behavior and things that even our parents, the way our parents acted, and then the way they, how come our parents acted the way they did? We see that it came from the generation before and the generation before. So I know that sounds like it doesn't sound about how we connect, but one of the first ways is we discover their stories. And as their stories begin you feel them in your heart, that I understand that story. That is one of the ways our ancestors are coming to us to explain to you that we have been through this. We're helping you find this story so our family has been through this and we can come through this. And so that is one of the ways that they connect, by leaving the breadcrumbs. They leave the breadcrumbs of the family story so that you look back and you go, oh, no wonder we felt the way we did. So in my family, we had a lot of famine. And so famine was lack and scarcity and not enough money and not enough food. And so when I learned how deep that story, I didn't know that story growing up. When I learned how deep that story was, it made sense. And it made sense that part of the reason that when David passed, and again, I was feeling the scarcity, part of the feeling was coming from them, that my ancestors had experienced it. And so that is why they came to me too in spirit when I was praying. So then we move from the stories to that when we connect with them, we don't always, in the beginning, we don't always feel, we don't hear their words. We don't see their faces. And so we feel like we're talking to the air. But as we learn the energy, the way they come to us energetically, we can begin to feel their spirit around us. And sometimes people will say they smell the perfume of their grandmother, or they smell the cigars that their grandfather used to, little things like that become a way of them bringing their energy into so that we feel it and we sense it. And so they begin to send us these little signs. I said earlier, you see signs like a light going on and off, a light flickering. You see a lot of times it'll be an animal. It can be David came as a crow. David was my husband. That was his name, as a crow, or a cardinal, or a hawk. Hawks are very, spirit has told me that hawks are speaking to me. So, there is that way. Anything that reminds you of your loved one, of your ancestor, is a sign for you. So if there is a beautiful song that you hear, they're making your awareness so that you're hearing that. It's how they energetically come to us so that we know they're there. I explain it to people in a way that if you want to turn a light on, you have to go put the plug in the wall into the, and then turn the light on, and then we have light. And so when we want to speak to our ancestors, it is like plugging in a lamp, and that we have to understand the energy they're trying to send us. So in the beginning, that is how we begin to get connections with them. And the more that we know that they're there, the more they come to us. So I'm going to stop there for a moment and see if you have if there's more I'm going to share, but I want to see if you have questions.
I have one. So when you say, when you explain what happened to you, and I say this because when you share that, it gave us hope that the people that already passed it is not them. They are over there. So it is not them. So for that reason, they are with us somehow. So my question is, because when you explain your experience, that they appear and they communicated with you when you asked for help, right? Like when you were in this really, really difficult time. So my question is, actually there are two questions in one. What other moments, not just because, it's just when you need help, but which other moments are the moments that they are with us? So it's when we need help, or there are other reasons like the cheerleaders. You are doing good. I imagine there are other positive moments where they are there. So that's one of the questions. And the other question is why it is important to connect with them. Like, why? You know what? Because there are people that say, don't bother them because they are in another different process. Don't talk to them. So those are the two two questions in one.
Okay.
I hope.
Those are beautiful questions. Really, really beautiful questions. So don't, they're around us all the time. As Natalia said, they're over there. We think of them as far away, but our ancestors and our loved ones, when they pass, they are still there in an energy way. And so they're not as far as away as we sometimes feel they are. They do come around us in times of joy. You will, sometimes you will see them, like if there is a family gathering and suddenly, a light flickers or a door slams or something, whoever it reminds you of, you feel like, oh, Uncle Bob's here. That's so they definitely come in that way. But I'm going to go to the next question, because when we cross over, I remember as a child being taught, when, we were taught rest in peace, that they've crossed, they are resting, we should not disturb them. And that was the way I was taught as a Catholic. But what I've learned is that when we leave here and we go to the other side, one, that healing takes place right away. So anybody, like David, as soon as he was crossed, he was surrounded by love and he was healed of what he had. So if your grandmother passed away and she had, let's say, emphysema or cancer, as soon as she crossed over, she was out of pain, or your parents are out of, so they are, as soon as they cross, they are surrounded in love and surrounded in healing. And what Spirit has shared with me is that there is a little bit of time in the beginning when they first cross. They kind of get used to being back on the other side, but they are here for us immediately. And so you are not disturbing them. They want us to be connected. They love us. And we've just never been taught that that's what we can do. And it sometimes takes us to go through a tragedy or a trauma for us to begin to realize that they are with us. And that is exactly what happened to me when David got sick and when he passed away. I thought my whole world has fallen apart. And what do I do? And that's when they're like, oh, we're here. We're here and we are going to help you. And do I miss David? Yes, but do I know that I've actually opened to this whole incredible group of ancestors and spirits that I feel surround me all the time. So they're here when I'm happy, and they're here when I'm struggling, because often it takes us to be struggling for us to want to reach across. When we're happy, we're like, hey, we're happy. Let's go shopping. Let's go to dinner. And we're not thinking of them. But they will often, you know, David showed himself to me in song, like there were songs that would play, and I knew he was, they were him, that he was sharing our songs with me. Numbers. So I shared that he passed away on 11/1/17. So 1117, that when that number comes up, I know that it is him and that he is trying to get my attention. So birthdays. So when somebody has my birthday is October 5th. So 10/5, 105. So when I see 105, I know somebody's talking to me.
Oh.
So I want, if you are looking to see if your ancestors are around, look for numbers. Angels come as 4s and 1s. And so you can know that when you see that, it is them. And when I first connected with my ancestors, I had been seeing numbers, and once I acknowledged them and I knew they were here and they were with me, I saw numbers all the time. And so they're looking for, and this is really important, so I'm going to say it slowly. They are looking for a way to communicate with us in a language that we will understand. So if a warm hug is what you need, you may feel like you have a warm hug around you. If seeing a cardinal is what is, seeing a symbol that reminds you of them, then you may see that symbol. But you may see it in a book, or you may see it as a piece of jewelry, or you may see it on a magazine cover, and not necessarily the cardinal that's flying outside your window. So they look for a language that you will understand, and they will show you that until they can teach you another sign, and that you can open it up more. We are all able to connect by sometimes seeing them or having them in a dream, sometimes hearing them, that you might hear their voice, and it won't always be in your ear, like you hear them talking, but you hear it in your mind's ear, if that makes sense. Like you see something in your mind's eye, that you will hear that voice. So that is a way that there isn't anybody who doesn't have loved ones and ancestors or angels around them. Does that make sense?
Yes. Bernadette, I love that after David went or back home, I always said they go back home.
Yeah, back home is.
They really don't die. But when they were back home, it's still communicating with you how much he loved you and how much everything is okay. And he take care of you and also your ancestors. And I wanted to ask this, why for the people who doesn't understand, why is it so important? As I keep hearing something in here. Sorry, I'm gonna go back to something else. I have since I'm with you, Bernadette, I started to get more messages.
Yeah.
My brother says I had to share this. He says, don't remember the jokes, because when my brother passed away, he came over, like, I think the day after he passed, and he says, he showed me everything, and I was feeling everything that he was feeling, like I was him, and in the moment that it was happening. So Christ was coming toward him, and I was him because I want to feel everything. And then Christ came over and says, "What are you doing here?" Like that. And he said, I just passed away. But the way they were talking, it was just so funny. And I started laughing and laughing and laughing. And I woke up laughing because I was feeling everything that he was feeling at the moment. Like, and I can feel what Christ's joke was. It was just so
that there was humor. And I love that he came through to say that. When we're talking and sharing here, we're trying to share so much in a short amount of time. And so you want, for those that are hurting right now, it's like, I want to get the message that, for those that are hurting, that there is healing there. But the joyful side and the joke side is a very important part of who they are. So I always say that we are created in, what do they say, in the likeness of God, that we're, and humor is a part of heaven. And so humor, that's why we have humor here. And they love a good joke.
Yes.
So they will, so David, I'll make this short. I won't, if I do the whole thing, it's too long, but I took somebody for a ride on a rainy day, I had to take them. And so I put some music on in the car, and it was a playlist, a bunch of songs that were our songs, David and mine. But there were a lot of them. There were a few that were special. So I kept saying to him, play one of our songs. Play one of our songs. And it was like an hour out and an hour back. So it was like 2 hours in the car. And he's not playing the songs I want him to play. He's not playing it. He's not playing it. And then on the way back, he finally plays one. And the name of the song was Fat Man in the Bathtub. And it was Little Feat. There was this group called Little Feat. He loved the song. I tolerated it because he loved the song. But I was like, why did you use that song? So I finally get back, and now I'm ready to go to the grocery store. I'm still in the car, still raining, and I have completely forgotten about David. And because my mind is like, oh, I got to go to the grocery store and get all these things. I stop at the stoplight to turn into the grocery store. The car in front of me has a license plate that says 1117.
Wow.
And the song that was very special, it's Landslide by Stevie Nicks is the name of the song, but a very special song that was ours came on. And it was like
wow.
he was waiting because I had a passenger in the car. So he was waiting for me to be alone. He was like, I'm not going to play that while they're in the car. He's like, that's our song.
Wow.
So, yeah, so there is definitely humor and there's so much love. Everybody, we are so deeply loved. I'm going to share one thing too, because some people may have heard of near-death experiences.
Yeah.
People who have had an illness or a car accident or something where they essentially were told their bodies were dead, and they went to heaven, and then they came back, and they experienced in heaven incredible love. And they often met, sometimes it was Jesus, sometimes it was God, it was ancestors, it was loved ones, but they were met with this, all of them say, this incredible, deep love. And I want everybody to know that each and every one of us is surrounded with this incredible love. And that no matter how you're feeling right now, even if you are at the lowest, holidays bring up a lot of difficult feelings. And even if you are feeling that you are so deeply loved, and they are so wanting to be around and bring you joy. And I just want you to know that that there have been people that have essentially proven it. They've gone and come back and they said, it's amazing. And you're so loved. And they're there rooting us on. Like you were saying, Diana, they're like, yes, they are there.
Cheerleaders.
Yeah.
So I have another question
So,
because I think, again, for the people that are watching us as well, when you have these cycles in your life and you already identify those somewhere, like somehow, for example, I'm just going to give an example in your case and the experience that you have, just as an example. Let's say your grandmother had a husband with alcoholism, and then your mom also had her husband with the same thing. And then you start to see this pattern, right? So then you are having the same experience right now in different experience, but the same through generations. So how do you cut
right.
that cycle? And what I'm saying is not just with my life, but let's say I have a daughter and I don't want her to live the same thing. Let's say I do something different, but I cannot say, hey, Sarah is my daughter. Don't be married with this guy because she's gonna do it. Like how we cut that cycle without interrupt the other process, or how we can heal that.
Yeah. That is a beautiful, beautiful question. And it's a big answer. And it's a big answer because there's a number of ways. One, that's why it's important to know the stories. It's important to know that there was alcoholism, gambling, whatever it is that was in the family, not just cancer and not just other physical, but things that brought shame to the family or are things that might be addictions that could be passed down. So it's important to know the story. Like we need to know that that is in our families. One, that it's there. And so that we recognize that this is that this is a possibility, because something like alcoholism, addictions are, there is a DNA component to it. So in other words, you can have alcoholism. His father was an alcoholic. His grandmother was an alcoholic, just what you were saying. And it has been passed down. So, and we talked about it. He and I talked about it. The other part of it that was part of the problem is he also had trauma in his childhood. And so, also knowing that that trauma is there. So there is, when we talk about it in our family, about David and about, it's a twofold. It is the alcoholism was there, but he also had trauma, and it was this way of dealing because he never dealt with the trauma and never talked about it, that's what kicked off his drinking. So it is kind of, so the stories, sharing the stories so that they understand this is here, and that we are the ones, we're the generation that now has the knowledge to know that what is causing some of these things. Um, it, and it's, it's hard to say. We want to be the generation so that it doesn't happen. We want to be the firsts. We want to be the ones. And the way we do it is to have the open conversation around it, and to know that we can't prevent all of it. We can, if nagging, if somebody, it doesn't help them. It often will cause them, to just turn the other way, whether it is like in my case, if I nagged David, it wasn't going to be easy. It was, if I said, oh, your dad was an alcoholic, your grandmother was an alcoholic, he already knew that, there is a part of that. So, but knowledge is the best way and talking about it and not hiding it is the best way to open up the conversation and to let people know that you need to be aware of this, and that there are ways there is help out there. I went to Al-Anon, which is a kind of an offshoot of AA, of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it helps the families. And so I went to Al-Anon, and I got help there. So I've stopped it, and my kids all know that I went to Al-Anon. So the next generation knows that that resource is there. And if they're faced with it, that they can use that resource. But they also know that it's genetic and they need to be careful. So it is kind of it's not a clear-cut answer.
Okay.
Does that
Thank
help,
you.
Diana?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Bernadette.
Okay, so like you said, depends on the person, because some people can really break that. And
Yeah.
some people probably need to be dealing and try to cope with it for a while. But it all depends on the soul experience, or what the spirit wants us to experience in this life, I would say.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
It's part of it.
It's part of it.
It's part of, and you and I have talked, and that's why the ancestry part is also part of it, because there is that soul part about what are we here, what are we going doing in this lifetime, and it's and that is not specific because we have free will. but we will be given choices that will, give us the opportunity to experience what we came to experience. But the other thing too is to also recognize, and this is one of the things that I touched on briefly, genetically things can be passed down. What that looks like is if our ancestors experienced a tremendous amount of trauma, maybe they became an alcoholic because they had that alcoholic gene, or maybe they became very anxious, really anxious. And so the gene for anxiety gets turned up, or the gene for depression gets turned up. And when that genetics is passed down, the gene is passed down in that turned up phase, so that you are responding, you as uh, coming down, and maybe it came down from your grandfather. Um, you are responding with more anxiety in your life to littler things than not just the big things. And so when we understand the ancestral part of it, we can see, okay, this anxiety is coming down through the generations as well. So that, the alcoholism is a genetic component, but the anxiety or the depression can also be a genetic component that comes down. And again, acknowledging it and understanding it is a way to help people begin to break the cycle and to change the genetics so that it doesn't get passed down to the next generation.
Okay. So the first thing is just to bring that conscious, because sometimes there are people that are doing things and they're not even know why, like you were
Right.
saying. But as soon as they understand about that, they bring the unconscious turn into conscious, and be conscious. That's when you can start doing actions that it will
Yeah.
help into dissolve that, and you have your free will to do it. Yeah, I don't want this anymore. I don't want my future, my kids to go through this. I want a different reality, a different
Right.
form. And
And it also brings, when you look back and you see what were they going through that maybe caused them to be the way they are, there's a lot of compassion and forgiveness that comes up.
yeah,
And really, what we are trying to do is to develop that forgiveness and compassion for ourselves first, so that we feel it, and then to give that to others. And so many of us are so hard on ourselves. And it is this whole process, everything we've talked about, is helping us to go in deeper, to know ourselves, to love ourselves compassionately and with forgiveness, and that opens us up even more spiritually. And it's everything begins to make sense when you allow an understanding and don't push it away.
yeah. And I want to say one more thing on this one, because some people may say, "Oh, my father was an alcoholic, but I am not." But it manifested differently. It might
Right.
go and marry someone who is alcoholic,
Right.
or might be that the addiction is something different, maybe food, or
Mm.
maybe it's an addicted about something else that is not alcohol, but that it's just the addiction, not necessarily alcohol or food or whatever. Correct?
Mhm.
Is that the way that can manifest also?
Yes. No. Did you want to share something else?
Yes. I went into the Buddhism one time. It was 2015, and I really wanted to forget somebody. I I felt really, I don't know. I didn't understand it very well, and that had to do a lot with what you were saying, because when the Buddhist was telling me to do this meditation, was putting the person in front of me
Mhm.
and literally look at this person and talk to their soul and said, why did he said that? And I knew a couple of things about this person. So all his childhood came in front of me, all the
Mm.
abuse that he was going through from his parents and stuff like that. And I started to feel a lot of, because they said, first of all, you need to feel compassion. That's the first step. So I started to, like you were saying exactly, and I started feeling compassion for this person. I started to tear out because I felt I wanted to hold this person, this child person,
Mm-hmm.
and say, it's okay. I'm sorry that your parents treat you that way, and I understand why you're that way in this moment. And then it comes the forgiveness for me for feeling that, not
Mm-hmm.
forgiving him, forgive myself for feeling that anger. And
Mm-hmm.
then it was a release like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
was seeing that person differently. And then I saw what I lived when I was a child, because my father also was alcoholic. And this is the first time actually I'm sharing this. My father was alcoholic. So this person was alcoholic too. It
Mm-hmm.
was my ex-husband.
Yeah.
So I see that, that it was playing me in a different way.
Right.
So what I was forgiving is for me to, the anger that I was felt from my father, and also toward this person that I adopted as a false idea, that judgmental, why are you like that? You
Mm-hmm.
should be loving, you should be loving. But that's not how it works. They are going through their traumas, they are going through their ancestors, that they are trying to get away. They didn't know how to. Nobody teaches them how to do it. And
Yeah.
so I think I liberated myself from that, and I started to see better. That was my first awaken, I would say, my first time
Mm-hmm.
I start seeing things differently from other people. And you literally feel more compassion. Every time I see someone that are angry or having this and that, I feel compassion because it's something, there's story behind this
Yeah,
person. It's
and
acting that way.
that's why my company is Tell Me Our Story, Ancestral
Mm-hmm.
Healing. It's the story behind it. But and compassion, you said what you said was really good. Compassion comes first. It's easier to be compassionate. The forgiveness, we can be compassionate and understand what somebody has gone through, and um, but sometimes the harshness of what their reaction to us or what they took us through takes a little bit longer. So I don't want anybody to feel like they have to go instantly, but and that's why I say feeling compassion and forgiveness for yourself. But I think what it is, it's the judgment is so we all walk with this uh, heaviness of being judged by other people,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so as we doing this inner work, and inner work is hard, but doing this inner work, it begins to soften us a little bit. And that's why I think being compassionate for yourself first is so important. And as you begin to do that, it will open you up to uh, the forgiveness and the non-judgment, because it releases you when you can say it doesn't mean you don't have to put up a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
So you can put that strong boundary there, like, I don't need to be in the presence of this person. I don't need to have interactions with them, but I am going to leave that. I'm not going to push anger or judgment in that direction, because it ultimately makes me feel worse. So, but boundaries, we could go on a whole other hour just talking about, because that's getting into something else. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it's getting into, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
But getting back,
Go ahead. No, finish, and then I'm gonna
no, no,
tell
no,
you
you
something.
go.
No, I'm just gonna tell you that after hearing your story and everything that you went through, and I'm pretty sure people that are dealing with trauma right now, they want to know how to contact you, for receive some guidance and help. So of course we are gonna put your contact information. I'm pretty sure it's the web page that is the easy way, right? So we're gonna put that in the
Yeah.
description. but also what
Mhm.
what they are gonna expect when they are dealing with trauma in a session with you, and in which situations your spiritual guidance can support them. Yeah. So what they can expect with receiving your help, and how you will work with them
Yeah.
to give guidance and supporting them, basically.
So the one thing is, uh, everybody is different because everybody has something going on that has brought them um, to see me, to want to know how to. So we often start with what the pain is in that moment, and if there's an ancestral part of it, then we can talk about that right away. Um, and if there is a wanting to a more spiritual side of it, where they want to feel like, how do I connect? How do I know more? How do I feel like they are with me? Then we can go right into that. So it is it's tell me our story. So it's comes from the point of view of the child asking the parent to tell me our story. Um, but the first thing I will ask them is, what is your story in this moment? And what is it, where are you, and what can we do to just alleviate what you are feeling in this moment? And then we can talk about, do you want to do some ancestry work? Do you want to do some sessions, and we can open to spirit? But when somebody comes in and they're hurting, we go straight to the hurt, and we just try and see where they are in that moment, and where what is going to be the thing that can help them
Mhm.
just to get through uh, get through that moment, and then know that there's more, that there are ways to heal, and that our ancestors, I mean, that's the one thing, our ancestors and our loved ones are like trying to pour down the healing. And they're
Yeah.
very, so
Thank you so much, Bernadette. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I love our conversations. I would
yeah,
say anybody who wants to talk to Bernadette, please, 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 please contact her. You will feel the energy, you will feel the love, you will
yeah.
feel the guidance, and you will see miracles. Honestly, I know I am living it, the miracle. After I started with Bernadette in. Yes, we definitely want to put the website of her. Please contact her.
Yeah.
And any other thought or last something that you want the person who's watching now to keep it in their hearts. One last message that it
I
will.
think um, what I want them to know is they're in the right place. They are already reaching out. They're with you, with both of you, Diana and Natalia. They're here. So that is saying to me that they are already seeking. They're seeking healing. They're seeking love. They're seeking help, and to feel that that is a huge step, to be proud of themselves, that they are doing this much, listening to others that are trying to share wisdom with them, so that they can begin to heal. And I think that is so important, because that is taking a step forward. And we all want to feel like, as we're going through something, that we're at least taking a step. It makes us feel better. So coming here and listening, and coming back and listening to you guys, or coming and finding me somewhere else and listening to me, those are huge steps. And if that's all you can do, like, keep coming back, because it's so helpful. So, and you two are the most beautiful souls. So if they come back to you, they are in the
I
right
just kidding.
place.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much, Bernadette.
Thank you much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Para las personas que quieran hacer una cita con Bernadette, pueden seguir la página que está, o el website que está debajo del canal o del video, y pueden hacer una cita con ella en español, y va a haber una traductora que sería tal vez yo o sería Diana. Esperamos verles ahí y coloquen en el mensaje español. Gracias.